Hello, Internet. Hello, Internet. Good morning. Good morning. It's probably noon. All right, that's enough clapping. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Chase Jarvis. Welcome to another episode of Chase Jarvis Live. What a show we've got for you. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. But before we get into the meat of the matter, I would like to give a shout out to the folks that are helping me make this possible. To Creative Live for producing this show, and of course the folks at Borrow Lenses, where I rent my gear from. Thanks so much. Today's guest, a filmmaking force of nature. The guy has so much success as a first-time filmmaker. It is blown away Hollywood. We just had breakfast. I was very, very honored to be in his presence, and we're going to get to sit here for 90 minutes. You may have seen the film. If you haven't, you need to rush out and see it. Dear White People, Grand Jury Prize winner at Sundance, hit all kinds of other festivals, and is crushing it right now in the theaters. You can literally watch the show and then go see it tonight. Please do, and please join me in with a huge welcome for Mr. Justin Simien in the house. Come on, let's do it.
Thanks for having me.
You look so nice.
Thanks,
I feel
man.
underdressed.
Thank you.
I feel underdressed.
You know what? You gotta rock a blazer when you're live.
It's true.
It's
true.
You
You get the armpit sweat thing.
It hides all of it so
does.
nicely.
It does.
Yeah.
You look great.
Thank you. As do you.
Thank you.
I
And
like the little panel on the side.
Yeah, this is for
fashion
extra breathing right there.
It's a nice fashion moment.
All right,
Good
it
for
is
you.
a fashion moment. Well, speaking of fashion, you are in fashion right now.
Nice segue.
Yeah,
That was
good.
good.
That's professional shit. This is pro. I've been doing this for 4 years. No, you are the man of the hour, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing film.
Thank you.
Could not be more timely, of course, with race tensions are incredibly high right now. I have a lot to learn from you over the course of the show. The fact that you made the show the way you did, I think the audience here, the in-studio audience, and the folks at home are largely made up of the creative entrepreneurs. And the way you made this is the future of filmmaking, and it's certainly not the past. So I'm gonna need to find out a lot about that.
Let's get into it.
You get it? All right. Well, actually, will you talk for a second? Tell me what's hot for you. It's got to be crazy. All the festivals and the tours and the press stuff like this.
Yeah.
Colbert Report a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's been it's very exciting. It's sort of like this is kind of the most I ever expected this to be. We were very successful, especially for an indie film here in the States, but we're sort of proving the myth that black films don't travel wrong, because we've been able to sell internationally to many, many territories. So we're kind of gearing up to open the film in places like France and Brazil and Korea and all these different places. So that's kind of up next. Tessa won an award. She won a Gotham Award for Breakthrough Actress for the film.
Give it up to Tessa. Well done. We should have had her Tessa come and join us. I know, my
Tessa
bad.
Thompson, who's Samantha White in the film. Film's been nominated for a lot of exciting awards, from the NAACP Spirit Awards, NAACP Image Awards to the Spirit Awards.
Sundance.
Yeah, and we won at Sundance, and so
That's huge.
so we're sort of it's exciting, man. We're still kind of in the game. We just won a New Now Next Award from Logo.
I don't even know what that means. That sounds
I don't. I don't either. But it comes with a trophy, so I'm excited.
Piled around, trophies piled all over you.
So it's fun, man. It's really fun.
So you touched on, you had a set of expectations going into the film.
Yeah.
And this is at the peak of those.
Yeah, I mean, really, truly, for me, it came down to the fact that I couldn't, I had a job that I liked and paid me well. But it wasn't what was in my heart to be doing. I had sort of
Anybody else fall in that category? You have a job. Actually, you shouldn't raise your hand because your boss might see you on television. But that literally describes so many of the people that pay attention to Creative Live or what I'm doing, and that you are living, breathing example of that is important. So
and for me, it was just like I just need to do this. Like, I can't spend another year wishing I had done this, and even if it takes me 10, 12, 100 years to do this, you know, that next year is going to be so much better than it otherwise would have been. And for me, that's kind of what it came down to, man. And so for me, like, the goal was to just get her done. You know what I mean? Get her done and pay my rent on the other side of it.
I think that might be tweeted somewhere in the universe right now. Get her done so I can pay my rent.
Get her done, be able to pay my rent on the other side of it. And that was the goal. The best case scenario is that we would get into Sundance and win an award in Sundance and be picked up and distributed and make money and then sell it across, you know, internationally and be in the awards race. Like that to me was like way above and beyond anything I thought would actually happen. But I've been fortunate enough to have it happen. It's kind of cool.
You're living it.
Yeah, man. It's weird, but it's good.
I first came into contact with the film by a series of work that you did before the film actually came out.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that a producer here, the producer of this show, Michael Karsh, and you guys go way back,
yeah.
Had one of those jobs that you didn't like, I think, I'm assuming. But
everything was great.
Yeah, everything was fantastic.
Everyone that I used to work
awesome. You've seen the Lego Movie, right? But like that, you left safety.
Yeah.
In order to make your thing,
yeah.
And how you did it. Like I remember seeing these things, like, wow, these trailers and these little promotional things that you did were amazing.
Thanks, man.
The trajectory of where you started writing the script to now. Can you talk to me about how you got here? Because as I highlighted in the very, very beginning of the show, that's kind of the future.
Yeah.
Like the world's best filmmakers are in their basement or in their bedroom or in an editing bay right now, working on nights and weekends.
Yeah.
And they're making insane stuff. And
yeah.
You lived it. So tell the people it's possible.
Oh, Lord Hammer. Okay. Well, it begins in 1983.
Wow.
No, just kidding. No, it doesn't. It was, for me, it was a blessing and a curse, but I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was a kid. And it's a blessing to know what you're put on the earth to do at an early age, but it's a curse because you have many years of not doing it.
Painful, right?
Yeah.
Every day that goes by, you don't make your thing.
Exactly, which just, you know, develops into neuroses and insecurities. But whatever, you know, I went to film school. I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, as I mentioned before, and I sensed that the sort of kind of black experience that I was having.
Kind of black?
Well, it was, just this sort of black experience that I was having.
Okay.
I'm black. I'm not black-ish, I'm black. Okay. And you know, the black experience that I was having was sort of not really in the culture. It wasn't really in the conversation. You know, when you went to go see black movies, particularly in 2005, which was when I was in film school, you know, you saw black people in all black worlds. You know, the postman was black, the dude at the car dealership was black, like bus driver's black, everybody's black. And I never grew up in that world. You know, I grew up in Houston, Texas. I was born and raised there. Lived in a predominantly black neighborhood, was bused to predominantly white schools because, you know, my mother wanted me to sort of have, you know, a better education than I would have gotten if I had just gone to school in my neighborhood. And so I've always kind of been toggling between those worlds. And
that's hadn't really been part of the conversation.
That aspect of it hadn't really been a part of the conversation. And, you know, particularly in college, I was just sitting back and having this conversation with my friends, and we were laughing about it. You know, laughing about the ways in which we toggle up and down our black identities to sort of just get along in this place where there's not very many of us. And I just thought, wow, I'd really like to say something about this, you know. I also, you know, they always tell you write what you know, start where you are when it comes to telling stories, and I felt like this is something new that I can add to the cultural conversation. And I really I had a great love for like the black smart house of the late 80s, early 90s. So these are films for, you know, the multiplexes but had an art house sensibility. So yeah. Do the Right Thing and Hollywood Shuffle and Love Jones and even Boys in the Hood came out of that tradition of like, let's say something different about this experience, yeah. And let's do it in a daring, artful way, but then let's put it out in the theaters. And by 2005, like, not trying to throw shade on any particular filmmakers, but that kind of filmmaking was not really like in vogue when I was in film school. So I wanted to pay tribute, pay homage, contribute to that kind of filmmaking, but with the experience that I was having and didn't really see talked about anywhere. And so that's really, in 2005, that's when I first started writing it. And
what year is it? It's 2014?
It's almost 2015, man.
2015,
it's almost been 10 years.
It's almost been 10 years. That's 10 years of work.
Yeah.
To go into a project.
It do take time.
I find as an artist myself, I find that like stamina is one of the most important things. You agree with that?
It's the worst. Yeah, it is. It is, because it's like you gotta like keep believing in yourself, which is not the easiest thing. I mean, listen, like there are different kinds of artists out there. I happen to be a neurotic, so like I always assume that I'm deficient in some way. And sitting down to a blank computer screen, there's no worse torture. Even though I love writing, like I love it. Like when I'm in it, like it's, you know, there's nothing better. But to actually sit down and get my ass in the chair and do it, that's the hardest thing. And particularly because I knew that I wanted to do a multi-protagonist story. I wanted more than one lead character. I wanted to pay tribute to this genre that was not in vogue. These are not things I was taught how to do in film school.
Yeah,
like
it's the opposite day. Right?
Yeah, we were taught how to write movies that would sell.
Yeah.
And you know, this is not one that traditionally should sell or work in the marketplace. So to write something I didn't really know how to write, and to make something that I had no experience making and had no mentor in the industry to teach me how to make, that was also hard, on top of the fact that it's just hard to do something that you love for some reason.
I believe that those statements right there are connecting deeply with not just the in-studio audience, but the folks at home, because I know that I had all of that same self-doubt, and I hear it, I read it all over the place, especially in the community here at Creative Live or in my own community, that's like being scared and pushing beyond. And there's no roadmap for this shit.
There's no roadmap.
There's no roadmap at all.
There's no roadmap, and there were many times where it just was not working, you know. And I will say this, I'll credit a couple things. So in 2005, I started writing the script, and it was really bad. It was a terrible, terrible
Thank
script.
God you had 10 years in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that at the time. Of course, I, like every person in film school, thought, you know, oh, 6 months. Yeah, in 6 months I'll be like a, you know, A-list Hollywood director. But of course, that's not what happened. I got a job in publicity, actually, because I was good at publicity, and I found it interesting. Like, how do you market and publicize work that is niche or specialty? And so I started interning at a place called Focus Features, which was making phenomenal films, smart house films, as James Seamus kind of coined, and making them really commercially successful. And their publicity team was a big part of that. So I started interning there. That turned into a job that I thought was going to be like a year.
Sure.
8 years later, I was still in publicity and marketing. But like, you know, and that was my day job. And at night, I would come home and I would write scripts, and I would make, you know, web series, and I would do short films, and I would just sort of try to keep the beast alive, or feed the creative beast. And you know, it was during that time, during many like redrafts of what would eventually be called Dear White People. At the time, it was called 2%, and just not really being happy with it and kind of giving up on it and moving on to other things. I came across this book called The War of Art. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Absolutely.
So The War of Art is great because it's all about
Pressfield?
Yeah, Stephen Pressfield, and he actually.
Great. You should be, if you're not writing that down.
Dude, if it is the cure for any kind of creative block, you know, and I read that book 100 times, like during the various stages of trying to get my ass in the chair. And it's just about, you know, it's about resistance and why it is that we resist the things that we love doing, and why, like, the thing that we know we love doing is the hardest thing in the world to do, and the thing that we should do is the hardest thing in the world to do. Yeah. And reading that book and getting a couple kicks in the ass. So kick in the ass one came from Stephanie Elaine, who ended up being the executive producer on the film. Nice. She's a big, you know, Hollywood producer. She's the reason why we have Boys in the Hood to talk about. She made Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan. She executive produced my movie, a movie called Beyond the Lights, which is in theaters now. Everyone should also go see that. But she basically came looking for a young, up-and-coming black screenwriter with a spirited, funny, interesting story to tell. And I knew, and I knew that 2% was going to be up her alley, but it was still really bad. It was still a hot mess.
Like it was 1% at that point,
it was like 0.5% at the time. And you know, I knew she would dig it, but it wasn't ready, and there was no way I could get it ready within the realm of time she was looking for something. And I just felt I felt like such a missed opportunity. Like it kicked my ass to miss that opportunity. I felt so sorry for myself, you know, and why couldn't I get this shit together? For Stephanie Elaine, I can't believe I had this opportunity and it came and went. And then the other kick in the ass came from my best friend, Lena Waithe, who is also a producer on the film, at Hillman Grad, if you want to follow an amazing voice on Twitter. She's also a writer and does a bunch of things, but we were both like in day jobs at the Paramount lot at a certain point in both of our careers. And she was like, whatever happened to 2%? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, get your shit together and get that script ready.
Wow.
Like, you've got to make that movie. And so it was those two things kind of coming in quick succession that I decided to kind of give up my social life, you know, literally close the blinds and lock the doors and stay inside and treat that screenplay like it was my second job, you know.
That is beautiful. Allow me to jump in and say, for the folks at home who are just joining us, I'm Chase Jarvis. We are here on Chase Jarvis Live with Mr. Justin Simien, director, writer of Dear White People, award-winning film that's in theaters right now, and he's telling us how he did it.
Yeah, man.
There's something about a crowdsourcing thing.
Yeah.
There's something about a tax return and some spent money to make a thing that you didn't think was going to do a thing.
Yeah.
Give us that.
Well, okay, so you know,
we're trying to give hope to the people. Like, that's what we're doing here.
Man, you got to take it where you can get it too, because let me tell you who was looking for this movie. Nobody. Okay, and I worked in the industry, so I knew that very well. Nobody was looking for a rumination on the black experience. Like, no, are you kidding me? The only person making multi-protagonist movies was Wes Anderson. And if you ever read any like screenplay books or like How to Survive in Hollywood, whatever, it was like, if you're not Wes Anderson or you're not, you know, Altman, don't even try. And so like whenever I would pitch the movie, talk about it, nobody was interested. Like, I just saw their eyes glaze over, you know. But I knew I had something. Like I said, I treated it like my part-time job. Had a screenplay I was really proud of. Did some table reads, so I felt like it was working. And so, you know, I was like, well, what is the next possible step that I could take? I see the movie in my head, but people that I talk to about it, they're just not going to see it the way I see it.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. They
Yeah.
don't get it at all.
They don't get it at all. They just don't get it at all. And so what I did is I took my tax return that year, you know, which wasn't much, but it was, you know, a couple G's. And I took those $2,000 and I said, well, let's make a concept trailer. Like, let's make a trailer that, you know, what if this, you know, treating the movie as if it already existed, and not doing the sort of like backyard concept trailer that you see on YouTube, but like a real, like, this feels like it was cut from a real finished movie.
Yep.
And you know, maybe that can help me get some meetings. So
there is no recipe for this shit, you guys. Like, he made a trailer before he had the film.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was the only thing I could do.
Trailer means after, just in case you didn't know.
It was the only thing I could do. Like, I needed to do something with it. I didn't have the money to make it. I didn't have the wherewithal to fundraise it for it, because if you want to fundraise for a movie, you have to have a lawyer and all that. I didn't have anything. So I had $2,000 and I had some friends and I had, you know, some experience making things. And so we took that. We took our friends. We took people who were part of the table read. We had some like auditions for some of the other roles, and we kind of like, you know, went on to the UCLA campus and got kicked off and stayed anyway and shot this concept trailer, shot this like, what if this was a movie trailer? And it came out really good, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I busted my ass. It was a lot of meticulous detail for something very small and very short. We shot it in 2 days, and we shot all of these different scenes from the movie, you know, and really just enough that we needed to make this 2.5, you know, minute trailer. And so that came out really good.
I'd like to actually take a break for a second and show, not that exact trailer, but the trailer for the film.
Yeah.
You got 2 minutes you can hang?
I got some time.
And you all in the audience can prepare a couple of questions, and you folks at home, we're taking your questions too at #CJLab on any of the Facebooks, the Twitters, the whatever. And let's go see this amazing trailer now.
You're listening to Winchester University's only college radio station.
Dear white people, the minimum requirement of black friends needed to not seem racist has just been raised to 2. Sorry, but your weed man, Tyrone, does not count. Dear white people, please stop touching my hair. Does this look like a petting zoo to you? Mistress in, dating a black person to piss off your parents is a form of racism.
The show is racist.
Black people can't be racist. Racism describes a system of disadvantage based on race.
But I don't see what the point is in blaming white folks for everything.
I really don't see the issue. Never ran into any lynch mob.
It'd be good to elect someone like you as school president.
Someone else is running.
Together, we can bring black back to Winchester.
Who does Sam think she is?
This like Spike Lee and Oprah had some sort of pissed off baby.
How do I feel about Dear White People? It's blacker than thou propaganda from a bougie Lisa Bonet wannabe.
Black people scare you?
I listen to Mumford & Sons and watch Robert Altman movies. Think I'm black enough for the Union?
Lionel, please. You're only technically black.
Sometimes I think the hardest thing to be in the American workforce is an educated white guy.
They pay millions of dollars on their lips, their tans, Jay-Z tickets, because they want to be like us.
Let's make it do what it do!
You want to know why they used to call me Black Mitch?
Absolutely.
Nobody called you that.
You've got no idea what they see when they see you.
You've got a thing for Taylor Swift. I know, because my Mac picks up your Mac's library.
We're so careful. You don't understand. Girls like me
Have to pick a side? I'm sick of your tragic mulatto bull.
can't say mulatto.
Mulatto, mulatto, mulatto!
Did somebody say mulatto?
How would you feel if someone started a Dear Black People?
No need. Mass media from Fox News makes it clear what white people think of us.
Your hair is so cute. Is it weaved? Weaved. It's weave. Noun. Present tense.
Racism is over in America. The only people who are thinking about it are Mexicans, probably.
So brilliant, so brilliant. So that wasn't actually the trailer that you made for $2,000.
No.
But where can folks see the one that you made for
You can see it
$2,000?
on my Vimeo. So if you just look up Justin Simien on Vimeo, it's still up there.
Great.
But yeah, we made that, man, and you know, that trailer came out great too. So shout out to Roadside. But basically what happened was because I was entrenched in publicity,
Yes.
and particularly at the time I was working at Paramount Pictures for a woman named Tamar in a department headed up by Amy Powell over there. And Amy Powell's genius was taking projects that were kind of small and sort of on the fringe, and coming up with these brilliant online campaigns, pushing us to really innovate online to get them successful. So I was part of the Paranormal Activity campaign, like the Demand It campaign, and we were part of like making these big online conversations around things. So my brain was already sort of kind of inclined to do something like that. So instead of using this concept trailer to just take meetings, I said, fuck the meetings. Let's put this directly on YouTube and let's see what happens, you know? And in my head I was like, well, look, maybe we'll get 100,000 views. That'll make it a little bit easier of a conversation to have, you know, 200,000 views, make it feel like there's kind of an audience for this already. You know, my brain was inclined to give people a call to action, you know, because online, for me at that time, as an online publicist, was all about giving people a call to action. So, you know, the best action people could do to get the movie made was give me some money, because I had none. And so, you know, the way it played was like, hey, this great movie is coming. Psych, it's not actually coming. But if you would like for it to come, donate some, you know, give me a couple bucks. And what ended up happening is we got to 1 million views and $25,000 in like 3 days. And so the trailer went wildly viral, and we hit our Indiegogo limit of $25,000 right at the top of the campaign. It went on to make about $46,000. And we were able to really, in earnest, start pre-production for this film, like right out the gate. I was able to start casting, we were able to start location scouting, looking for line producers, that kind of thing, while we took meetings in Hollywood to talk about this, you know, viral sensation or whatever. And that's really, that was just the beginning, unfortunately. But that was the beginning of our campaign. I never had to sort of go into a room and pitch the movie or pitch myself. And if you're making if you're making a movie, the odds are stacked against you. But if you're making a movie with black people in it, whew, you are in trouble, because, like, I mean, the thing is that the way Hollywood financing works is that most financing is based on international appeal. And the myth goes that black movies don't have international appeal. So 95% of the financiers out there, you don't have access to. They're not interested. They won't even take the meeting.
Wow.
So
this is getting used to hearing no.
Yeah, so we heard no a lot. And we went to several different, you know, big studios.
What'd they say?
Well, they all loved it. They loved the script. They loved the concept trailer. They liked me. They liked our producing. Our producing team was like a Benetton ad. It's like, you know, it's true. It's like me. I'm flanked by 3 very powerful black women: Stephanie Elaine, Effie Brown, and Lena Waithe. You know, my friend Angel is a producer of the movie. He is Latino. We have an Asian girl. Like we really came in there like the Power Rangers. And so people liked everything about the project, but then it would go over to their business affairs department, and it was like, you know, they couldn't find, you know, a square, you know.
We're gonna make $200.
Yeah, they just, it didn't look like any movie that they had made before, and so a yes turned into a no in every scenario, and it was devastating to go a year and a half on the heels of, you know, what felt like a hit online and be told no over and over again by the studios. But something amazing happened in the course of that year and a half. What happened is that we kept building an audience. And even though
taking notes out there, y'all, taking notes.
And we started like doing like this sort of like, it wasn't a reality show, but it was sort of like a like, are they gonna make the movie? Like pseudo docu-series. We came up with something called Token Tuesday, where we would celebrate token black people, you know, like Urkel, not Urkel, he actually was around other black people, but like, you know, Storm and the X-Men, and like, you know, what's the black kids, Franklin from the Peanuts, and we're just like celebrating, you know, tokens, and people got into that. We just kept it going, kept the conversation going, kept making content. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, our audience was huge. We had 25,000 dedicated fans to the movie. Dedicated fans, people who, you know, bought the T-shirts that we had and talked about the movie online and watched everything that we did. And we had fans for something that didn't even exist yet. And that was the only way we were able to get our financier involved. Julie Lebedev from Code Red Films finally came in and financed a film, saying, you know, well, you guys have an audience. What would happen if you actually had a movie? And that's how we were able to get, you know, traditional financing in a very unconventional way.
Well, I know that the folks in the in-studio audience, I'm actually going to give one of your signed books away to the first person I call on to ask a question here. But before that, the internet's going bananas. Love the concept of the trailer. P.S. I'm going to see this movie now. The most popular quote is, "Let me know who's looking for this movie." Oh, no one. And Alyssa B says, "F the meeting, let's put this thing on YouTube." All right, in-studio questions. I'm going to take one, and I'm going to give you a signed, what am I going to give you, a signed book? Is that right?
Yeah. There's a Dear White People book.
Whoa. All right, so don't be afraid. You've got a question, don't you? Shoot. Signed book's going to you. And tell us who you are first. I think do we have a mic to give? Here's a mic coming from the back row. Oh, right there. Tell us who you are, and save the funny story about how we met for later, but ask Justin your question.
Hey, Justin.
Hey.
My name is Ashley Pitson. I'm in the middle. I feel a lot of similarity to what your story has been. I've been trying to make a movie for the past year, and just quit my job and just really focusing on that full time. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about like the obstacles that you faced in making the movie that you didn't necessarily expect. Like like, you know, of so many obstacles, like from the outset, like you said, who's looking for this movie? No one.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could talk about the things that have happened and how you overcame them.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to give you a super crunchy granola woo-woo answer, okay? But it's the truth. It really is the truth. The biggest obstacle you have to overcome is yourself. Because the truth is that anything worth doing is going to give you so many hurdles to jump and so many, you know, so many ropes to climb and so many horrible things happening and going wrong. Like, that's the stuff, that's how you kind of know that you're moving in the right direction, which is the scary answer. But the only way to keep going through that is deciding inside that, like, you're not going to take no for an answer. And that's what I had to do. And you know, I can't tell you what it feels like to have so much enthusiasm and success and excitement in one arena, and going, you know, into the people who you think are in control of your destiny, and realizing that it doesn't mean anything to them, you know, like, but we got fans though, and we got views, and CNN wants to talk to me. They don't give a shit, like, they don't care. But you have to sort of get out of the mindset, and it's really difficult with film because film is in particular, it takes a lot of money to do at any level. Oof. It's expensive, it requires a lot of collaboration, and so it's really easy with film to get into the mindset of like, oh, I need someone up above me on some, you know, some mountaintop to say yes to me in order to make it. But the truth is you have to say yes to yourself, because a lot of those people are going to say no, and you have to decide to keep going anyway. And so, honest to God, like, that is my real answer. Like, that's how it got done, is I had to sort of develop a fortitude of some kind to keep going even though there was no sort of obvious way the movie was going to happen. I can't tell you how many times we got our hopes up for, you know, a saving grace, a big studio, you know, a big financier, a celebrity, whatever it was, you know, kind of in that mindset of waiting for someone else to give me my shot. Our hopes, you know, were crushed time and time and time and time and time again. And the way we got the movie made was in the face of that, deciding, you know what, cool, well, let's just do another piece for the online community. Let's keep feeding that. Let's take another meeting over here and let's see what happens. That's how we got it done. It was really, you know, the person who came in and financed it, it was based on watching our progress over a year and a half and looking at how we were able to build an audience. Now,
that you cannot overstate.
You can't,
because you're consistently moving towards your goal, even if it's just another thing that you're piecing together, you're just continuing to make shit, right?
Yeah, and I'm a big, you know, I'm a big step out on faith kind of guy. So I quit my job right when the trailer went viral. And I quit my job for 2 reasons. I quit my job because it was hard to like be in a job and take the meetings that were happening because of the trailer, and because there was a major studio that loved the project and was really interested, and basically we had begun negotiations for them to do a deal to finance the film.
You're like, I got this.
Yeah, and I was like, I got this, you know, and it was a little risky, but I did it anyway, and that fell through. That fell through, and it was devastating, okay? But like, I could have stopped there and gotten another job. But if I had done that, we wouldn't have made the movie. And now in retrospect, a year and a half is actually, that really now, it feels like such a short amount of time to get a movie off the ground, but at the time, you know, you don't know when it's gonna happen, and it's so frightening and it's so scary, so you have to sort of find, first of all, you have to find a project, and it sounds like you already have, but find a project that you can't sleep at night without doing, because it's gonna take that kind of passion, it's gonna take that kind of dedication, and once you're lucky enough or unfortunate enough to find that thing that you know, that keeps you up at night, you have to just decide not to take no for an answer, because you're gonna hear no. You just will.
10-year overnight success.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Well, I hope you feel like that answered your question. Again, the internet's going off right now. The biggest obstacle you have to overcome is yourself. I was just told this tweeted 1 million times, so we've got that going for us. But let's move this timeline forward if we can. So you got financing.
Yeah.
And then from financing, you felt, I'm guessing, like, all right, we made it. But that was just, you were just getting started.
Oh, no. Let me remind you, I'm a neurotic person. So there is never like an arrival point for me, okay? We got financing, but here was the thing. So we were like, I felt like the place for this movie was Sundance. I just felt it in my bones. I felt like if this movie is going to premiere anywhere, it's got to be at Sundance. I mean, it's you know.
You listened to your gut on that one?
Yeah, but I felt for this movie in particular, like this was the right way to launch it. And in order to make Sundance, we had to make the movie by a certain point. And also, you know, I had to make the movie by a certain point, or I would be evicted because I had no money. It was a year and a half of, you know, unemployment ends at a certain point. So, you know, I was sort of kind of like, if I don't make this movie, I got to go back to Texas, or I got to give up, you know, I got to give up on the dream. Yep. And so the financing came in at the nick of time, but the thing is that we signed the deal in July for the financing, which meant that we had to shoot the movie in August. Okay, the very next month, in order to get it at least
that is a crazy timeline, man.
In order to get like a rough cut, so we could even have a shot at Sundance, okay? So
for those of you who don't know, you got to submit by a certain day.
Yeah, there's a certain, and we were like at the late deadline
I'm doing the math right now. That's rough.
And even you know, your odds are worse the later you wait. And so it was all a shit show. But so basically, we're in July, and we signed the deal for the money to come through. And Effie Brown, God bless her, she was the producer that Stephanie Elaine brought on. You know, had the impossible task of setting up this movie in like a month. And we found, you know, we were going to all the states and the cities that give tax rebates so that we could stretch the small budget that we had and actually accomplish the movie without gutting the movie and gutting the script.
And these are the nitty-gritty, like these are actionable takeaways.
Yeah.
When you're low on funds, you're making the movie, and you made it in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, we made it in Minnesota.
It's not really the filmmaking capital of the country.
It's not, but what they did have was a brand new tax rebate called Snowbait. And It's called Snowbait, and we shot there right before it started snowing, which is good. But it was like, you know, trying to find a campus that would allow us to shoot on it at the end of summer, not an easy task. Trying to find a state that, you know, would work with our budget and all that was not an easy task. And so, you know, I wanted to do a multi-protagonist story. I was looking at, well, maybe it's not a multi-protagonist story, and you know, and we had to drop so many things in order to make the movie. But you know, there were some things it would devastate me to gut and give up on for the movie. So really, we flew into Minneapolis in order to location scout. And I ended up just staying there because it was sort of like, well, the school will let you shoot here, but you have to shoot in a couple weeks, and you can only shoot for 1 week, and you kind of have to go now if you're ever going to go. And we just sort of got into the situation where we had a school, we had a tax rebate. I didn't have any time, but like physically, it was theoretically possible. Now, mind you, this is what people call an art show. So if you saw the trailer, you know, it's in a hyper stylized reality.
I call it Spike Lee meets Wes Anderson.
Yes, yes.
We're two people, you know, it's a passionate connection there.
Thank you. And it does take place in this sort of larger than life world. This is not cinema verite. It doesn't feel like a documentary. And so this is what's called an art show. In order to pull that off, you need at least like a month and a half of prep because everything is just so, the costuming, the set designs, all the tech scouting and location scouting to get everything just right. So we had 2 weeks,
that is crazy.
We had 2 weeks and we had my iPad with like, you know, all of
your set, that's all you need.
2 weeks, my iPad and a Pinterest account so that I could sort of like show people what I was going for. And that's what we had, man. And so, you know, that was a really ridiculously rough 2 weeks, but we made it. We more or less made it happen, and kind of stumbled into the start of production end of August, and shot the film in about 20 days.
That also is crazy.
Yeah, shot the film in about 20 days.
Feature-length film shot in 20 days.
Feature-length film in 20 days. We picked up a couple things in LA, and there were some very long shoot days. I'll tell you that. But yeah, it was just sort of, you know, I did have the benefit of having lived with it for 10 years, for 8 years at that point. And so, you know, I knew what I wanted. It was just a matter of communicating that to a lot of people and making sure that we pulled it off as closely to what I wanted as possible with, you know, really kind of no time.
Let's talk about those people.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier collaboration, specifically with film. It's a huge project.
Yeah.
You got a lot of people to communicate your vision to.
That's right.
So how'd you communicate? Again, these are nuts and bolts takeaway for the folks at home. How'd you communicate your vision? How'd you find your talent? Those are, I mean, like huge hurdles.
Yeah, yeah.
And you did it.
Oh my God.
You did it in 2 weeks, and you crushed it.
Yeah, well, the one thing we did have on our side was we had a lot of time to cast, because that's all we had the money to do for a while.
Right. You make phone calls and look at people.
Yeah, right? and Kim Coleman, who's an amazing casting director in Los Angeles, we just kind of looked at talent. And that was the one luxurious part about that, is that we had a few months to do that. And you know, she introduced me to Tessa Thompson, who played Sam and won a Gotham Award for her role.
Unbelievable performance.
Yeah, and introduced me to Tyler James Williams, Brandon Bell, actually, who is going to be in a sci-fi show called Ascension. I'm actually excited about that, because I'm a big nerd. He was actually already a friend of mine, but he played Troy in the concept trailer.
Got it.
And he kind of went up against some big names and kept the role, man,
nice.
Through the audition process. And Tiana Paris, who is phenomenal and is on Mad Men and is on all these other TV shows, she blew me away as Coco. And so we were able to sort of take our time with the casting process, which was nice. The alternative to that, however, is when you're shooting a movie for a tax rebate, there's a portion of your casting that needs to be done locally.
I do know this rule.
Yeah, so we were in Minneapolis, and we had maybe like 4 or 5 days to do that.
Mostly white people.
Mostly white people, which was good for us because we had some white people we needed to find at that point. But you know, this is being a black place in a white place. There was more white people to cast really than anything. Yeah. But there was you know, we had a week, which is a stupid amount of time to cast a feature film, to find some really big, important parts for the movie. And Lynn Blumenthal, who was our local casting director, was also phenomenal, and that was a bit of a struggle because, you know, the thing is that Minneapolis in particular is a theater town. You know, they have the Guthrie Theater there, and theater acting is very different than film acting. So we saw a lot of brilliant people for Dear White People the musical, Dear White People, the stage show, you know, the one-act version, the one-man, one-act version of Dear White. We found lots of talent for that. For the filmed version, which is what I was occupied with at the time, you know, it was harder. It was harder. But we found some really great people. Justin Dobies, who plays a character named Gabe in the film, is a major role we found there. A guy by the name of Jamar Michaels, who plays a really character in the film. A really important character of the film. We found him in Minneapolis, and you know, we were able to sort of whip it together among other things in that week's time. So how did I communicate to all these people?
Together, just.
For me, it was about sort of communicating in as simple terms as I could. So, you know, this Wes Anderson, Spike Lee thing.
Out here. This is where the rubber meets the road in making a film, communicating your vision.
In simple ways. So, you know, you know, as a filmmaker and as a sensitive artist, I hate being put in a box. But look, here's the thing: people got to know what they're doing. So, you know, this Wes Anderson, Spike Lee thing. I said, you know, if the world of Royal Tenenbaums had an interracial love child with the world to do the right thing, and that child grew up and went to college, that is the world in which my movie takes place. So I was able to sort of put it.
So I was on.
Yeah, you were right on it.
I nailed it, right?
I was able to put it in that way and send people off running to find things. We knew that the costume and the set design and all that was very important. So Bruton Jones was our set designer. A woman by the name of Sherry Anderson was our art director. And the way I work is, I think every great movie is comprised of about 40 scenes. And we couldn't hire a storyboard artist. We didn't have the money for that, and I'm terrible at drawing.
Stick figures. This is where the iPad came in?
This is where the iPad came in. So for every scene, you know, I listed my intention, like what is the scene, why is the scene in the movie, and it was, every scene just had lots of movie references, lots of sort of I just sort of, you know, instead of sleeping, I went into, you know, the Town Place Suites, which was the hotel we stayed in, and I just sort of made these documents for every single scene.
Made a world, a little ecosystem.
Exactly. So that wherever we were, people had, whatever department you were in, you know, be it sound or lighting or wardrobe or camera or whatever, you had 100 references to be looking at and thinking about when you couldn't necessarily get me on the phone or find me for a meeting. And so, and that's kind of how we did it. And so, also I knew that the movie was a self-aware movie. I knew that the movie was referencing other movies. So there were some times where we moved into a space and said, okay, today we are recreating this scene from Persona visually. And so we all had it, you know, we all had the scene that we were doing, we all knew the shot we were doing. We didn't have the benefit of a storyboard, but everyone kind of were able to be on the same page because, you know, the actors had an intention for the scene. Yep. The camera department had a bunch of visual cues.
But what a mechanical process.
Yeah.
You think that this is like just some mind meld, that no, he's cutting things out and showing his iPad, making references, pointing to other scenes in other movies. This is a very thick, multi-dimensional process.
Yes.
That I see upcoming filmmakers, or in my world, upcoming photographers, the gap between, Ira Glass talks about this, the gap between what you see in your mind and what you're actually capable of making is the creative gap.
Yes.
And when you're a pro, that gap is as close to zero as possible. When you're beginning, there's a million miles between those. And so you have to try and build a world to close that gap down, and by any means possible.
Any means possible. And it also means knowing when to use and when to ignore your ego, which is very hard. Because
Not sure about that one. I'm very
well, because sometimes you have to fight for your vision against people who don't get it. And I'm a first-time filmmaker, and you know, Effie and Van Hayden, who was my AD.
Van Halen?
Van Hayden. I'm just kidding. Van Halen also, there was the second AD, was Van Halen. But Van Hayden was the first. So I had people who had a lot of experience, and you know, they believed in me, but they didn't know me from Adam. And so, you know, I'm a first-time filmmaker who they're talking to in a certain way because they don't want me to fuck up. They're trying to protect me, but I need to sort of get my point across. And so there's a time when you have to sort of protect the vision, and there's sometimes you have to admit where you have no fucking idea how to solve the problem. And knowing when to use your ego and when not to use your ego is a very important part of the process, because you will kill yourself if you won the argument on the set, but it looks like shit in the editing room. Like that's the worst feeling in the world. And you'll also kill yourself if you didn't stand up for what you knew was right, and what you got looked like shit in the editing room. So kind of learning the nuance of when to toggle that up and down is something I think I will forever be trying to master.
I get it. Can I go out on a limb here?
Yeah.
And I think it's actually harder when you're the new kid on the block to actually decide when to stand up and fight for the thing that you care about,
Yeah.
I found like
you don't
there's
have
a desire to default to the people who are world class around you.
Yeah.
And
it's hard. It's hard. And I knew that we were making something different.
Yeah.
We were making something very different. So, you know, I had to sort of be my own voice in the room. But the other thing is that, like, you don't have time to fight every battle. Like, it's just not, the movie just wouldn't get made if you fight every battle.
Right.
So sort of prioritizing the battles, knowing which battles to delay, knowing which ones, you know what, maybe they're right. Maybe this is just my ego talking, let's give that a try. Knowing when to do that is tricky, but it's something that you kind of have to do in real time. And, you know, again, we didn't have a lengthy prep. We didn't have a lot of times for rehearsal. So these are real time decisions. You move in there having come up with a plan the night before, a brilliant way to shoot it, but you find out you can't put lights on the ceiling, which means you can't shoot it in any way, shape, or form like you had planned to. And in that moment, when you still have just about an hour and a half before you got to get the scene going, you have to make those times you have to make those decisions really quick and in real time, and that's tricky, man. It's tricky.
Those are creative constraints, right?
Yeah.
That drives so much of the vision, and you know, people can come and say, I need something that's 6 foot tall, purple, sounds like this, walks like this, and you got to make it.
Yeah.
You got to do it on the fly.
Yeah.
That's why the science actually supports what I'm about to say, which is creativity begets more creativity, and making decisions with constraints under pressure. That's why you get up and sit down at the empty screen every day and write. That's why you go out and you take a picture every day, is because when push comes to shove and you have to make something under pressure, you've done it, and your world takes over, your brain, your neuroplastic brain.
Yeah, and it's nice when you, and just speaking to that, it's nice when you have an idea about the way something should look or how it should go, and you achieve it exactly like you wanted to. That's nice. But the great stuff comes from when you totally fail at what you were trying to do, and something else that you never expected happens. And you know, we talked about casting earlier. That's how I look at casting. I want someone who gives me who I wrote, but I also want someone that brings something to the character that I never even considered before, that takes me in a completely different direction. And as a filmmaker, you have to be open to that. You can't shut down when things don't go your way. That's a way to make a film. It's not a way to make a film in 19 days.
Well, the questions are coming in like wildfire. One from @Steven, I can't keep up with them actually, @Bob, @Steven Krolick. You have to say, I can read that, you can look at me. I'm looking right over here. Like, it likes the Twitter feed over there. It's like crazy. Like a lot of retweets, but you have to say yes to yourself. Where'd you learn your, @Bob wants to know, where'd you learn your film skills? You went to school for it, right?
Well, yeah, I went to a great school called Chapman University, and it's a very hands-on school, so you're making stuff the minute you enter the program there. And so, you know, that's kind of how I learned, I think, the technical side of it. In terms of like my instincts as an artist, you know, you learn by doing and you learn by watching.
What about the PR side?
Well, the PR side I got from, you know, doing it for 8 years and being a people pleaser out of Houston, Texas. I don't know. It just sort of came naturally to me.
My point in asking these things is I think a lot of the folks at home and maybe even in the in-studio audience, they think that you make good shit and it just happens.
Yeah, no.
If you think that your job is done when you've made your good thing, you are totally high.
Yeah.
Because that's actually when the work starts.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it wasn't work to make the thing, but to get the excitement, to get the studio meetings, to get the financing, to get... that's
a
different kind of work.
And that's a version of the script that is like, you know, hundreds of drafts in. You know, you sort of, it's never, with a few exceptions, and you know, I have a friend, Lena Waithe, who writes very fast, and sometimes her first drafts are just like brilliant. I don't have that particular thing. Yeah. So for me, I learn so much more from my mistakes, so I have to kind of be willing to make them over and over and over again. And yeah, man, the work really does start anew at each stage of the process. Like there's a saying that I learned in film school, and that is totally true. It's like you write one film, you direct a completely different film because it never quite comes out the way your intention as a writer is. Once you get into the edit room, you find that you actually need to make a third movie because the stuff that you thought was brilliant on set actually needs a bit of a zhuzh, to put it lightly. And then once you release into theaters, the film that the audience sees and the experience that the audience has watching the film is a completely different film. The laughs are in completely different places than you think they are. People use the film and think about the film, and the film becomes a part of the culture in a way that you could never expect. So there's 4 different deaths that you have to go through. You have to mourn what you thought the film was going to be several times during the process.
Have you rewritten your script 100 times? Not quite. Not quite. But that's, I mean, 100 times. You've heard the 10,000 hours component. You've heard that's referencing that earlier point that I was making about stamina. You've heard no for a number of years. You started writing the thing in college,
and
right?
being willing to be vulnerable. Like I think one of the most vulnerable things to do as a filmmaker is to have what I call a table read, which to me is the most important part of my process as a writer, which means you stop like huddling over it in your wherever you write and showing it to a couple people that you probably think you already know what their answer is going to be. You kind of have to break out of that and just fucking put it up. Get a bunch of actors, get a bunch of people in the room and see what everyone has to say about it. But that involves you kind of being okay with it not being great yet, and being okay with it being imperfect, and being okay with kind of being vulnerable. And that was a part of the process to me too. And so anything in the process that you haven't done yet, that you're afraid to do, you might want to think about doing it, because that might actually get your work to the next level.
All right, well, let me be vulnerable for a second, because you talked about, no, honestly, you talked about the cultural implications of your film. Here I am, middle class white guy, and I'm a very sensitive artist in the same way that you've referenced yourself. I want to know as much as I can. I want to learn from you and from this film. It's obviously a huge charged time in our culture right now with all the violence that's been going on in and around race and the recent deaths of black Americans. How, I don't even know how to start talking about it other than putting it out there. And it's something that is.
Well, that's how you start, because for a while, like no one was talking about it. You know, like I remember when the trailer first came out, and someone who I really respect said, the reason why this is exciting is because you're saying what we all say to ourselves and behind closed doors. And you're airing a lot of dirty laundry that people don't want to talk about. But the reason why we are so separate and so different and at odds with things is because we actually don't have conversations about a lot of these things.
Right.
The characters in my movie are messy and they are flawed, and nobody is dogmatic. Nobody is right 100% of the time of the movie, and that's what the human experience is about. And it forces me as a filmmaker to think and talk about it. But and I can say this because I've been to many screenings and Q&As, it forces people to look at themselves, no matter what race you are, and think about the role that identity and race and who you really are kind of play in your life, and have conversations out loud. I wanted to make a movie for the lobby. I wanted to make a movie where you're in the theater for 4 hours because you've been in the lobby for 2 hours talking about what you just saw, and having cross-cultural conversations and having conversations with your friends that you would never have.
Right. I handcuffed you to the couch, so we're going to be here for a while.
Okay.
No, but you are Lionel.
Well,
are you not? Lionel's a character in the film, and he was the one in the trailer that says, "I listened to Mumford & Sons." Am I black enough for the student union?
I don't listen to Mumford & Sons.
Okay, to be clear.
I do enjoy the latest Taylor Swift album. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But I understand there's some autobiographical...
Blank Spaces goes in. It does. Here's the truth. Here's the real sort of... I'm all 4 of those characters. I am Sam, I am Coco, I am Troy, I am Lionel. The experience of being an awkward gay black male, I know very well. So in that way, I've walked the shoes of Lionel. But I've been, they all represent different tactics that people of color use to get ahead and to find a place in a world where they're not being represented. And anyone who is different, they represent tactics that people use, and I have used all of those tactics throughout my life. And even now, Samantha White plays a revolutionary leader of sorts on her campus, and she thinks different, and she's provocative, and she says a bunch of stuff that comes from a truthful place, and it sets people off in the best way, and it sets people off in the worst way. But because of that authenticity that she has, she is then co-opted and expected to go out and be this sort of political leader on campus, which she finds herself, finds that to be very uncomfortable. And I can relate to that.
Have you become, and in the wake of Eric Garner and Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin, have you become a political character?
It's weird, because I think sometimes people look to me to have answers, and I don't have answers. That's not my bag. The bag of the storyteller is to hold the mirror up to society so that society can talk about it, see themselves, and come up with the answers. And you know, I was obviously moved. You know, I was in New York when the Eric Garner thing went down, so you know, that was a really charged and emotional and fucked up time. And it's a terrible thing that happened, but it is causing people to talk about an issue that we all, for a while, were pretending like didn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
You know, for a certain point in time after 2008, people acted as if racism was over because we had a black president, you know, reelected him. And then, and people just sort of, if you brought up any kind of racial issue, or if, you know, being a black person, trying to sort of call out places where I felt like racism still was, you know, people just didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to see that. And the one thing that this case and you know, the really messed up situation of no one being indicted with Eric Garner and Mike Brown is that people are talking about it, whether they're outraged on the right side or the wrong side of the issue, they're talking about it, and we have more of a sense of where we're at, and I can contribute to that dialogue. I have feelings and things to say, but I don't have an answer. I don't. You know, that's. I guess that's part of the fear that I have in talking about it. Is there's a desire to in my world to rush to fix things. I'm a fixer, and I certainly don't have any solutions. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I sense to be true about being a storyteller is that telling the truth is the most important thing you can do. And so people who, you know, we got into a lot of conversations around the title Dear White People. Incredible title, by the way. Thank you. That's, I mean, seriously, incredible. It's better than the 2%. Well, I think so too. But Dear White People, it was provocative because there was a degree of people who were really butthurt about the title, okay? They felt like, you know, I saw, you know, reverse racism, you know, I've gotten that a lot in my Twitter feed and my YouTube account, but, and I, having studied the topic a bit, you know, I don't think, I'm with Sam. I think racism, what racism is and how racism differs from prejudice and bigotry is that racism is about a system of disadvantage. It's baked in. You know, it's a system where if you are a black youth and you're unarmed and you're killed by a white police officer, there will be no justice for your death. That's baked into the system, okay? That's not just about people's attitudes or a joke about white people or a joke about black people. That is a reality for certain people. Sam says that in the trailer. That's right. That's a reality for certain people in the country. So when people talk about reverse racism and I respond with that I don't necessarily solve the problem of racism, but I think I can inch the conversation just a little bit in my own way, a bit closer to the truth. Because if we want to end prejudice, fantastic. But if we want to end racism, that's a different conversation. And it's, you know, my movie is not, you know, it's not an example of reverse racism because this movie has no impact on the way white people live their lives. It's not possible for a little indie movie to impact the fabric of a white person's life, but it is possible, you know, for these injustices to keep going on for the lives of black people. And the difference between that, I think, is worth talking about. For sure. You know, we spoke a couple of weeks ago and decided to invite you to be on the show, and you said yes, and we talked about the initial sort of thrust of the press that I saw was very much around the race issue, and as powerful as you've told an amazing story, the poignancy, the timing, all of that being relevant. I think how you made the film before we even talked about the race part was incredible, and I think there's so much traction capable of the population now to tell their story. And I'm thinking, you know, that we talked about this earlier also, I'm sort of letting you all in behind the scenes here, is that a great vehicle for more stories like the one that, I mean, you told a satire, but there's a lot of gravity to it. Right. And can we empower more storytellers through learning how you made your film? I think so. And I think at the heart of it, you know, why there was a YouTube campaign, why there was a successful Indiegogo campaign, why we had, you know, a sort of unconventional independent financier come on board the project, all of that came down to the fact that I wasn't willing to take no for an answer and to endlessly come up with a way to do it. Another sort of publicist turned filmmaker before me is a woman by the name of Ava DuVernay. She has an amazing movie coming out called Selma. I was not paid to say that, but it's an incredible movie. It's coming out from Paramount at Christmas. It's you know, about Selma, the town of Selma when Martin Luther King was there. It's about a, you know, time in civil rights. But before she made that movie, she made 2 other movies and was told no by a bunch of people. And so she self-distributed the movies. She went across the country and found theaters. she created this company called Affirm, and she went across the country and she found theaters and created her own network of theaters to release the film theatrically. And it was off of the just profundity of that, you know, and also the fact that she's a brilliant filmmaker and writer and director, an amazing person, that she got the gig to do Selma. But the funny thing is that as I went around the country for Dear White People, you know, I ran into so many Affirm people. I ran into so many like people who were like on the Affirm team who were organizing screenings to see my movie. And this all, you know, I can't necessarily tell you to go out and find your own network of theaters, but you'll come up with something else that people are going to be going crazy over. If you're just like unwilling to take no for an answer, you're going to come up with something that makes sense for your story.
I love that.
And we live in an age where like there's so many possibilities now.
Yeah,
you know,
the internet is a light. No matter what you say, no matter what race you are, having conversations with yourself to understand your own identity. That was D_Anthony. Miriam Kapow, the bag of the filmmakers to hold a mirror up to the society. These are things that I'm hoping are takeaways from this show that will go inspire other people, not just to tell any story, but to tell a story that is...
That means something.
Yeah, that means something to you, and your story obviously means a lot to society. If you're just tuning in, I'm Chase Jarvis. If you're tweeting out there and sending people to this URL right here, we're going to give away a camera here in the not-too-distant future. I'm Chase Jarvis. Justin Simien's at JSIM07.
Yep.
That's a good one to follow right there. Any questions from the folks in the in-studio audience? I'm seeing this Twitter feed over here. It's going crazy, and I know there were some pent-up questions. So we're going to go to you all now.
Pent-up questions.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
And it's all you. You got to tell us who you are first and say hello to the internet and Mr. Justin Simien.
Oh, hello. My name is Lawrence He. And my question is back to when you were talking about meetings and generating meetings and stuff. Did you, after you've gone through so many meetings and hearing no, did you kind of, what lessons did you learn along the way as like, from a language standpoint, or like how to phrase your meetings to make sure that it goes a little bit better, or even reaching out to get those
positioning
meetings?
Probably. Yeah. Like how'd you position you?
Look, I'll tell you, the meetings went fantastic. I give really good meeting. I give good meeting, and we left every one of those meetings feeling like, yeah, this is gonna happen, and it never happened. But I think part of it is to being open, you know, and not being terribly precious. You know, anyone that you are going to be meeting with wants to feel as if it's a collaboration worth their time. You know, no one's going to let a first-timer come in and just do it their way. So, you know, kind of being open and finding ways to meet in the middle and being warm about that and about that process, I think is good. It also really, really helped that I never had to pitch it. I never had to start from zero. I had the trailer. I had a fan base. I had other stuff to be like, hey, so when I entered a room, people already knew who I was, because because whether or not we were successful wasn't necessarily dependent on them. They were coming, you know, if they were going to come on board, they were going to be hopping onto a moving train. And
that is a huge deal.
And coming into a meeting with a moving train is very different than coming into a meeting expecting them to start the train, expecting them to fix your engine. You know, if you come into a meeting kind of feeling like you could take or take or leave what they have to offer you. Of course, like we're all like shaking in our boots privately, like, oh my God, we really need them. But like if you come into the meeting with that kind of sense about you, the meeting tends to go a lot smoother because no one feels as if something is being asked of them. It just feels like, oh, this might be a fun thing to try. Yeah, does this collaboration work or not? It's not about like, you know, oh my God, we're going to be, you know, flat on our asses if you don't say yes. It doesn't have that feel to it.
There's a prizing that you've done in making something, and the train has left the station, for example. You're prizing the thing that you've made with passion. This is going to get made, and if you think it's a good vehicle for you to participate in, then we'd be happy to have you, assuming you meet these criteria. No problem. And there's this sense, you know, we've had entire shows based on how to position your artistic project so that you can get it made in an uncompromising way, but with the financing and the support that you need. Because let's call it what it is. We need this stuff to get, you know, global distribution in the way that you have. Again, you're not in the basement digging ditches. You got a whole team that's now doing that globally.
And you also have to know, you know, because here's the thing, if you're talking specifically about movies and it's about getting financing for a movie, you really have to know what about your product is sellable. And that's different sometimes than your artistic or your artistic impetus for making the film. So, you know, walking into a meeting saying like, I really think the world needs a rumination on black identity, doesn't really go anywhere. But if you say, you know, there's a lot of people who are starving for content that speaks to them. And this is why I know that that's true, because look at all the people that watch this trailer. Look at all the people that watch similar things on TV, and look at the lack of those things in movie theaters. Don't you think that's a gap, you know? And that conversation goes a lot further than me necessarily talking about, you know, the things that actually really matter to me. There's some companies and there's some people that really, that's what gets them going, but those are few and far in between. So
be different, not just better.
Yeah, and knowing who you're talking to, doing a little research, that just your due diligence type stuff, you know, is always good.
When we announced the show, a lot of inbound to my email account, it just turns into my inbox looks like a pile of hangers after I announce the show, and especially this one. A lot of passion around the topic of independent filmmaking. Yeah. It's something we're pushing into at Creative Live here. But I will say that the most powerful things came in about race. Even something, I think yesterday came in, a filmmaker. Hey, could you scroll down just a second? I had this filmmaker's name on my little notes up here. Other direction, actually. So it made a film with, a very short film with Ice Cube, a guy named Jamani Perry. And I think it's Why Am I a Threat? About being a black man in America. And I'm getting inbound things like this. Talk to me about that heavy identity crisis of being a threat for being black. I don't even know where to start. Again, this is where I'm, again, white privilege sitting here trying to find out. It's got to be like,
well, I don't
know where to start.
The thing is that if you're a person of color, or if you're different in any sort of recognizable, noticeable way than whatever is the prevailing thought or idea in the mainstream, you know, to walk around in the world, no matter if you're in a gas station or you're in a pitch meeting or you're getting onto an airplane, is to constantly be aware that other people see you probably in a different way than you see yourself. And it is true that there are certain parts of the country where if I walk around in a hoodie, I could get killed. Like that's a fact. That's a truth. And you know. And to know that at all times as you walk through the world it's a heavy burden, that you're never really anonymous. You know what I mean? You never kind of just blend in, and people sort of look at you and wonder what music you listen to and want to just get to know you because you seem interested. You know, most people who meet you see whatever is different about you first, and it's just human nature to sort of pile up a list of assumptions about you, and spending the time that it takes to sort of, you know, jive and shuck and jive around those assumptions. That's wasted energy, it's wasted time, but that's sort of a reality for people. And
it's a mode you have to operate in.
It's a mode you have to.
Self-preservation.
Yeah, it's, you know, being a woman, I don't have experience being a woman, but I imagine being a woman, you know, in America, particularly in corporate America, has a similar sort of, you know, tack to it. Anything
particularly in Silicon Valley here, in San Francisco, where we are, it's just it's way out of whack.
Anything that makes you noticeably different, that you wear on your shoulder and you can't hide from it, you have to walk through the world in a different way, and it's heavier. It's a heavier walk.
I had another powerful conversation with a friend of mine via email about the film as the basis, and I'm sure he's watching now. About a conversation. He's a person of color and talked about wanting to help a woman put her luggage. You said plane earlier, reminded me of this story. Put her luggage in the overhead compartment, and he reached for the luggage, and she grabbed the luggage, like no, and then immediately asked the white dude next to her if she would, you know, put her luggage over.
Right.
How fucked up is that?
It's fucked up because I don't even want to help people with their luggage. So the fact that he was like really like trying to help her, I was like, well, damn, I won't ask.
I mean, it's you know, you let off some steam there by making a joke, but that's the reality of the culture that we're living in, as seen through, you know, the eyes of Ice Cube or you. Or
and you're told a lot about what you are. You know, you as a person of color, like I watch. You know, if I took all of my understanding of who I was as a black man from what was on television and what was being played on the radio, you know, none of that stuff looks right on me. You know, like I remember just the crestfallen look in some friends' eyes when they, you know, when they asked me to help, play a game of basketball with them, and they realized I couldn't dribble. It's just like, I'm sorry, I'm not that kind of black person. I apologize. But like, you know, it's sort of like you're told a lot about what parts of the world you can go into. And one of the things that I always said, you know, Do the Right Thing is an influence on me as a filmmaker, sure, artistically, very much so, but also just the impact of knowing that a black person, Spike Lee, made a movie about black people, but he made it with that sensibility, you know, with that sort of like artistic style, with that aesthetic, and you know, it was critically acclaimed and divisive and provocative. And just knowing that that happened in the world, him being a figure out there in the culture, was the one thing that let me know that I could make movies too that were different and not what a black movie was supposed to be about or look like. And you know, I think people sort of like don't realize how powerful it is to not be able to see things that look like you in the culture, and that's another thing. Is sort of that's another reason to doubt yourself. You know, going back to you know, there are far too few female filmmakers out there. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. You know, the lack of sort of, you know, female talent behind the lens, and if you don't see yourself there, you know, with a couple exceptions, it makes you feel, it makes the self-doubt about sitting down and getting to work to do it is even harder than it would be if it was something that felt more like a common occurrence.
I had a dinner with Spike Lee, and he talked specifically about that, about the need to make the film because you don't see yourself present in the culture. That's a powerful idea, and that's like, you are different, so you have a different story to tell, and that diversity is part of the power of the story. Like that.
And that was very much an impetus for the movie. It was like, I did not see myself anywhere in the culture, so I'm going to put myself there.
Great. Actually, that's a great question from Rebecca Houghton from the old internets, I think at Twitter's. What was the most unexpected result of the process and release of Dear White People? The most unexpected? Aside from its success, because you already talked about that. Were you able to break through? Were you connecting in a way that you hadn't before with Hollywood, with your peers?
I mean, I can't really understate how powerful it is that we were able to sell the film internationally in as many territories as we did.
Can we give him a shout out for that? That's a big deal. That's a super big deal, man.
That was unexpected because cut to...
You were told there was no way it was going to be a commercial success, right?
Cut to a couple years before that, we're looking for financing, and the number one reason we're not getting financing is because people are afraid they won't make their money back overseas. And we're selling it to territories that no one thought it would sell to. You know, I got to see the movie in Scandinavia. I went to, you know, Stockholm to screen the film.
Wow.
And we were their most successful film in their festival there. They kept adding 750-seat theaters and selling them out for our film. And this is, you know, supposedly an American black story that they could never relate to in Stockholm.
Wow.
But, you know, I knew what every filmmaker really knows is that, like, you tell a story that's authentic and true to you, but the more close to you and the more close to the truth that you can get, the bigger appeal that it actually has for everybody, you know. I don't have to be a Jewish American to appreciate Woody Allen. Just like, you know, you don't necessarily have to be a black American to appreciate my film, because we're all telling stories about the larger human condition. And, you know, it does feel a lot of times in my industry that unless you're a white male, you know, that's not possible. You're telling a niche story for a niche audience, and only some people will understand what you're doing. And the fact that, like, Hollywood is just now having this revelation that, like, women, you know, women leads in films, you know, can open a film is just crazy to me. And we still have a lot of strides to go when it comes to representation for people of color, representation, you know, of gays and transgendered people. There's many different areas in the culture where, like, the America that we all live in isn't reflected in our culture. And but it does take people trying to put themselves out there to prove that, yeah, I'm being me, and it's working for other people even more so, because I am being authentic and I am saying something that is personal to me.
I could just let that linger for a long time. There's a couple more questions in the audience. I saw some hands going up before that we didn't get to. In the back row, we're going to go to you. Tell us who you are and fire away. Let's get a camera on her.
Hi, everyone. All right, mic check. My name is Regina Walton. I actually used to work at Creative Lab. That's how I heard about this, so thanks for doing this, Justin.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, and you talked about it just recently. I used to live abroad in South Korea, and actually really helped a lot, you know, just kind of putting my face out there to get more black teachers there. And they are over the moon that it's going to be released there.
That's
and I'm
great.
wondering, can you speak to... Yeah, I guess those markets that surprised you, because I was thrilled to hear
That's
it was
great.
going to be released, you know, in Seoul. And when is it? Do you know the details of
I
that?
actually don't know the date. I don't know the date for South Korea yet. I think they're still sort of figuring that out. I mean, the truth is like, I don't have a lot of experiences outside of mine in America and outside of things that people have told me. So like, I truly, what's that? Oh, thank you, thank you. So you know, I'm kind of excited to visit all of these places for the first time in my life, and in real time see what people think is funny, what they think is important to them, what they think is topical. And you know, in Stockholm, it was so eye-opening to see that they were also having similar struggles. You know, they don't really have an Ivy League college system there, but I guess what is sort of their version of that, they are also dealing with like blackface parties and like all of these things. Like, I just didn't realize just how, you know, global some of these issues were. But also beyond the issues, it's always gratifying as a filmmaker. And I do have, you know, lots of feelings and beliefs about racism in this country, but ultimately, I'm a storyteller, and I want to tell a story about the human condition. And it's cool to see people who don't look like the characters in my film, who do look like the characters in my film, all connecting to the heart of the film and walking away with similar things to talk about. And that's exciting to see that be able to translate, because I think that's what we all want. That's what we all sort of are in it for, is to reach as many people as possible.
I think a huge takeaway, I'm again looking at the Twitter feed, but a huge takeaway for me is that you're not telling a story about society, you're telling a story about yourself. The answers, I think, to creating great art and to helping contribute the most is not really out here, it's in here.
Yeah.
And for those folks, I think this is maybe the most prominent question that I get, like, how do you know like what your style is, and the answers are inside. Like, there's a feeling, it feels right. The way you feel how it feels right is you have to make a bunch of stuff and
see what doesn't work.
And when you were making the YouTube stuff and writing the script 100 times, you see what doesn't work a lot.
You see what doesn't work, and you know, for me, it's all about having an organizing principle. So, you know, in film, you know, there's a lot of movies that don't even consider the theme of a film or what a film is actually like about. But I think that's the most important thing to figure out. You know, and for me, the best themes are actually arguments. It's one idea versus another. And so for me, my film is about identity versus self. You need to know who you are, but you also need to know how you're seen to get on in America. But oftentimes those two things are in conflict with each other. So which one is more important? It was a very simple thing. And whenever I came across a creative dilemma, like, you know, what to do with this scene, what should this character say, where should we put the camera, what's the color temperature, all of those creative questions, I can hang all of those on identity versus self. What are we saying about this argument? Which side of the argument is winning right now? And just by bringing it back to that organizing principle, we were able to sort of, you know, make those creative decisions without pondering, you know, what's the audience going to be like? You know, where does my film fit in this genre? And what do people want it to be? Like, I don't have to go outside, I can go inside.
Yes,
because
that's a very simple filter that you push every decision through.
Every decision through. Like, what am I saying about this theme? And it's not, you know, it's not a moral, it's not a lesson. No one ever says that in the movie, but that's what, for me, the movie was actually about. And, you know, I think in photography or any other sort of like artistic mediums, you know, it's thought of as what's your point of view? Yeah. What are you saying? Like, what are you saying here? Are you saying nothing? Or what are you saying about nothing? You know, you can kind of
notice it's the you. What are you saying? That's what I'm saying. Like, the thing is in here. What do you have to say? And that's the way you.
And what I love about art and photography is like is as an audience member is sort of trying to decipher that. That's the most fun part about it to me. It's like, what is this person saying? You know, like,
and to watch your film, I can tell that that's entertaining to you because it is so.
The movie says a lot of things.
It does, and it's so finely crafted. It's a beautiful film. Again, the Twitters are going crazy. One of the questions that I just had come in is, when's the DVD out, man?
Ooh, that's a great question. It is coming out February 3rd on Blu-ray and DVD. It has a lot of special features, actually. All of the viral things that we did online will be on there, as well as a making of piece, as well as more of me talking. There's like a lot of good commentary. There's some deleted scenes that I'm actually really excited about because I really wanted them to make the movie, but it didn't make sense, that you can get. And that's February 3rd, just in time for Black History Month, so you'll feel super racist if you don't get it. And it'll be on VOD in digital formats on the 20th of January.
Nice.
So soon and very soon.
But I recommend strongly seeing it in the theater before then, because it's
the
theatrical experience is really mind-blowing.
It's great to watch it with people, I will say. It's a fun like group movie because you're gonna want to talk about it with somebody.
Absolutely. I couldn't even. You mentioned the lobby thing. I couldn't get out of the lobby. It was like really wanted to.
Love it, hate it. You're gonna want to talk about it. You know?
Sure. And it has that. You're not quite sure what just happened. You walk out, and you're like, what just happened? It's like there's a land in that theater where you experienced a world that.
Well, that's those are the kind of movies that I loved. You know, I remember the first time I realized that a movie could do that was with Eyes Wide Shut. Now, I was too young and unexperienced with the world to see that film when I did, but I saw it in high school, and I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, but I had no idea what kind of filmmaker I wanted to be. And I went to performing arts high school, so we did theater, and I remember like figuring out as a young person, wow, theater is really powerful because like theater is like about the human condition, and you walk away thinking about what the play is about and all these things. And when I went to see movies to turn my brain off, like that. Those were different experiences for me. Right. Eyes Wide Shut was the first film, and Stanley Kubrick was the first filmmaker that taught me that movies can operate in a similar way, and the way you tell the story can be as unconventional as you'd like it to be. And I remember like sort of being super bored and angry during the first 30 minutes of it because it's such an unconventional film, and that was my first experience with an auteur filmmaker like Kubrick, and by the end of the film just being completely devastated by it. Like I was just so enraptured in that film.
You thought you were signing up for Top Gun because it was Tom Cruise?
Well, I didn't know what I was expecting. I think they were marketing it as kind of like this like sex drama or something, which is not really. And by the end of it, I was just on the edge of my seat. And I was, the way that film ended, I saw it at night, everyone was asleep, and I was like 15 or 16, and I was like, what the fuck did I just see? And that became my favorite movie-going experience. Is a movie that could like take me into a world of its own creation and leave me with more questions than I began with. And that's the kind of movie I wanted to make.
That is a beautiful story. Now I got about 5 minutes to wrap us up here, but you've got a bunch of other stuff in the hopper. You're still marketing the film right now. It's a full-time gig.
Yeah.
But you're acting?
A little bit. So my friend
be in a movie.
So my friend, I gotta plug the book, by the way, because the book is awesome.
We're gonna let's plug the book. I think we actually have the book cover. Maybe we can pull that up for the folks at home. And
this is for all of the races. It's a guide to interracial harmony in post-racial America. You'll notice that post-racial is in quotation marks because it doesn't exist, and it's sort of like it's a survival guide for people trying to figure out how to have these conversations. But it's done with humor and lots of illustrations, so it's super fun. And it's available.
Make me feel better because I'm struggling with that.
The illustrations done by a guy named Ian O'Fallon are fantastic, and they're very helpful, and it's available everywhere. So get it. It's a good stocking
stuffer. That made me, the book cover made me want to comment on Lionel's hair.
Yeah.
Like, you made a bunch of little short plugs for the movie that it released on YouTube, like Sam looking in the camera, like, "Dear white people, don't dance." And where did you come up with those? Because you had that one.
There was a Twitter account.
The get your hands out of my hair.
Yeah, there was a Twitter account during the writing process, and it was just called Dear White People, and people thought it was a joke account. It was really me sort of testing Sam White's sort of personality and voice out in the world and seeing what
jokes.
How
beautiful is that? You're testing on social media.
That's so that's how the Dear White People Twitter account started. And if you scroll all the way down to the beginnings of it and the Tumblr page, you'll see all of these Dear White People isms. And the ones that are were the most popular or the most divisive are the ones that made it into the film. So the book is something I'm pushing.
The book?
I am acting. It's a movie called I Can't With You, and it's the directorial debut of my really good friend Angel Lopez, who was also a producer on the film.
Oh, excellent.
It's his first film. He asked me to be in it. I have a theater background, but I haven't acted in a while. I'm super nervous but excited about it. And it's basically just like wine-soaked like Silver Lake hysteria, and it's you follow these former best friends during a wine-soaked evening as these truths are revealed, which is the best kind of sort of dishy indie movie in my opinion. And the script is fantastic, and I'm honored that he asked me to be in it.
Well, we're gonna look for more from you, more from Dear White People. They get the DVD coming out.
Yeah, DVD coming out.
Let's talk about some of the coordinates on the internet. You got Dear White People is the Facebook, at Dear White People.
Twitter, Instagram. Dear White People is what it's called everywhere.
It's pretty much a thing, right?
It's a thing. And
you are in particular at JSIM07.
JSIM07. Yeah, that's how you can find me across all of the things. But if you just Google me or the title of the film, you'll find things too.
Fancy. I'm proud of that. Now we have, the internet has been afire since we were talking over the course of the last 1 hour and 27 minutes. I'm going to give away a camera to that went fast.
That did go fast, man.
Super fast. You're like, you're going to be on for 90 minutes? And you're like, oh man, I'm going to be bored after 20.
I wish my plane trip here felt that fast, but it was...
But so thanks for the fine folks who've been promoting this show out there in the world by tweeting all of the quotes, of course, from you. And my eyes aren't good these days, but that's M. What does that say right there, Deep? M. See, you can't even read it. You're 2 feet from the thing. D-O-U-H-N-E. M-D-O-U-H-N-E. You win. So send an email to production@chasejarvis.com. We'll get you the GoPro camera. Thanks for tweeting and Facebooking and all the stuff that all y'all have been doing out there in the internets. Fine shout out to Creative Live and to Borrow Lenses, the folks who make this show possible. If you're an aspiring filmmaker, Creative Live's got classes, and I cannot be more grateful for your time.
Thanks for, I'm grateful. Thanks for having me. This has been
it's going to be a grateful off because I'm real grateful. I'm super grateful.
Well,
and please,
awesome.
Internet, I hope to hear you clapping out there too, and the in-studio audience. Big round of applause for Mr. Justin Simien. Signing off. I will see you next time. Thanks, my man. Appreciate it. Woo! That was a good one. Thank you so much for
the old to the new.